We start again over here just to wrap up the process cycle that we have learned from the week 2, all right, where I procrastinated. All right, we went into different sector, right? Last week we looked into the basic small business, we looked into the manufacturing business, we looked into the retail business, and we look into the service business. Do you remember? We look into the process, right? But somehow it is all around, all right? It's all around, and then today, and yeah, where am I? Anyway, today we are wrapping up the cycle, all right? We're wrapping up the cycle, and the cycle goes back to basically what we want to learn, all right, the AIS. Okay, AIS, again over here, I have with me is all the 6 components. If you remember, your AIS, the beginning of the first chapter when I introduced you to AIS, right, I pull out the 6 components. Masih ingat? Still remember the 6 components of AIS? If you will not run away, it is as it is, all right? The 6 components of AIS always start with, it can start from any part of the component, all right? So because we have gone through all the process, I will start with the process component over here. Can you see this is the process component? Over here is the process. Just the process, okay? What kind of process is this? It is not any other process. It is the business process, okay? And this business process is actually the core to what we are studying so far, all right? Just if you're wondering what you have learned in the past weeks, if you are wondering what you have learned in the past weeks, you are learning different business process, okay? The different business process that would build up the business operation, all right, in the company. Does that make sense? And this business process, we have gone into detail each of the business process, starting from the one that relates to the sales, to the expenses, to the production, human resource, and the finance, all right? And of course, in each of these business process, the key thing, all right, I highlight to you is the data, right? The data. You must be clear what data is being transferred, what data is being converted, all right? And what data is being recorded in each of the process, okay? You must remember which data is important or which data is specifically for which cycle. It seems very simple, right? Senang? Simple, is it simple? Clear, right? I mean, like, it's like you're teaching a kid with 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Right? It's like 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, right? But it is so important that you get yourself familiarized with the data that is following the cycle. So for example, like this, okay? Will you record the sales invoice in the purchase cycle? It's not a trick question, right? How come you all look at me very different? Will you record a sales invoice in a purchase cycle or procure to payment? Will you record a sales invoice, your sales invoice, all right? Let me make it very, very specific and clear. Your sales invoice, is it inside the procure to payment cycle or the purchase cycle? No, right? Okay. All right, good. at least you are safe, all right? I mean, at least I'm safe also. It means that you know what I'm saying to you, all right? So data falls the second component over here, which you need to know by heart. Later we'll go through again. All right, we'll go through again each of the cycle, the process, the data, and then over here is the people. All right, the people or the person that manage this data. This person that manage the data, the person that input the data, or the person that basically enter the data right, into the system, into this process flow. Basically, he or she, all right, this person, all right, will either be based on the role or based on the department, all right. Okay, this person will be based on the role or department. It is very important, okay? Knowing the process itself, the process flow itself is number one. It means that in every process there's like a sequence, right? Do you remember those sequences that I explained to you? Each sequence is important. That's number one. Number two is the data, all right? You must know which data to be inputted or being converted into the information later on for the reporting. Number three over here is the people, all right? Those particular person that process the data, those particular person that input the data. For example, customer input the sales order form, all right, for you to maybe start the quotation, right? The customer give you the quotation, or you agree upon the quotation, then only you start with after that, the salesperson that input to the system. So the third component is the role, the people, and it can also be referring to the department of the person is in. All right, this falls on to the third part of the component, and of course, where do you enter this? You enter them into the software, right? You enter them into the software, and over here the software plays another crucial role in the AIS. You must have a proper system to keep track of your information, all right? And this information, basically, you'll be using the IT infrastructure. IT infrastructure over here can be computer, it can be the QR code, it can be anything that is the IT infrastructure, all right? For this person to do the record data entry and to fulfill all of this process. And finally over here, the last part of the component is onto what is the last part of the component? Do you remember? What is the last part of the component? Okay. Can I get someone put up your hand? I got this one, right? I still have this voucher over here. I haven't used them all up yet. The karaoke voucher, right? I got it from somewhere else, you know. So, who wants to answer? What is the last component? Very simple answer, right? It's no trick. After you have all these components, you must understand all these things, all right? How the process works. What is the last one over here? Put up your hand. I saw you want to put up your hand now. No one want to try. No one want to try. Yeah? Control, right. All right. Give your friend a clap, all right? Here for you. All right. Pun. Can just come and pick it up, all right? Let your friend do a little bit working. Right. Okay, this is long enough. Okay, Anyway, over here is the control. Knowing all the process, knowing the data, knowing the people to enter the system, the final part is to have a proper control. All right, the control over here. And that is it, basically. Over here is the software, right? Software. Over here is the people. And over here is the IT infrastructure. IT infrastructure over here is very interesting, you know. It includes like the kiosks, you know, the KFC kiosks, those kind of things, the self-service kiosks. It can be anything, all right? Can be in any form. Not only the computer, right? All the while you think it's like if AIS is the computer, right? And just the system, but the computer is the HUD, all right? It's the HUD. It can be extended to other devices, all right? That will support the whole, everything will go back to this over here, all right? It will go back and support this business process over here, all right? Everything will go back to supporting the business process. And having all of this perfect, we want to also ensure that we have a proper control. This one, all right, this part over here, this component over here relates so much, all right? It relates so much to your auditing costs, all right? It goes on to your audit. Because what is the end goal of this process, all right? One of the things is, if we do this, if we have a proper AIS, okay, what happens? If we have a proper AIS, it means our business process is going to be effective and efficient, right? Effective and efficient, right? It means all the data over here, this data over here, will be converted to the output, the report. You know, the concept of input to process and then to output, right? And this report over here it can be any report, right? But one of the report is the financial statement, all right? And this financial statement will be reported to the stakeholder, right? Does that make sense? It will report, you will have the system over here, ultimate goal, you got the report, and then this report will be reported to the stakeholder. And when the stakeholder use this report, if this business process over here is good, all right, if it's good, then we can trust this one, or we can trust. Do you say trust? Say true and fair, right? Is it true and fair? Do you still use this term? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Don't know. Audit, all right, if you prepare a financial statement based on your system, your computer system, and if all the recordings is correct, right? I mean, all the recording is not jeopardized. Jeopardized means that the record is correct, right? Then the report will be true and fair. All right, it means it is true, and it is fair. Do you learn this term, true and fair? Have you learned this term called true and fair? Okay, maybe you already learned, but you just want to be humble, all right? You want to show that you all already learned, all right? Basically, what you want is you want to have a financial report that is true and fair. And to have a financial report that is true and fair, you'll go back to this system over here. If the data, if this person over here is true or not, all right? When you enter of this data over here into the software, is there any is there any fraud that happened or not, right? Is there any misappropriate of information? Is there any anyone trying to jeopardize the system? You know, that when you record the sales, okay, if you follow the business process, what you will do? You will begin from the customer, right? And then customer you will have a legitimate customer. You have a legitimate customer, you have someone that is legitimately purchased from you, the sales, right, from the sales. And you legitimately send the product to the customer, and you will recognize your sales. Alright, your revenue recognition. Remember that one? Alright, goes back to your IFRS or MFRS 108, is it? 118. 118, right? Or nowadays they have new already, right? They have a new standards for the revenue recognition, but that is on the presentation side. I'm talking about the part where you want to record in the system. And in this case, if the salesperson wanted to get commission, right? He or she can simply create some fake customer, you know, and then boost the sales. And this will cause the input to be fake, right? I mean to be, what they call the term? Will cause the sales value to be inflated, right? And ultimately it will affect the report, and this financial statement will not reflect the true performance of the company. So in that sense, right, it will cause the system over here, the process, to be not trusted, and then it will cause the error. And that's where you don't want that to happen. So in order to prevent that from happening, you will have the goal over here, the most important, which is the control, right? Let me just put nice star over here. Alright, the control over here, okay? You must put in place a proper control so that there will be no one that simply jeopardizes the system for their own benefit, alright? Or there will be no fraud, alright? There will be no fraud. Fraud and error, alright? These two things is family, but they are different, alright? They are different between the fraud and error, alright? We are putting in control over here to prevent the fraud and error. And this control over here, in our AIS context, we look into two areas. One is the control in terms of the software, because we are AIS, right? Control of the software. Control of the software basically goes back to this one over here. This one, the IPO. Software talks about this part, input, process, output. You talk about the integrity in each of these components or the area. And there will be the second part, which is this one, the procedure itself. Alright, the control on the procedure itself. You want to prevent the person to the control on this and this. Alright, these two components, the business process and the person. You want to control this as well. So in your process, in recording certain things, you might need certain person to authorize. Okay, for example, before the sales order can be created, it must be authorized by someone. But sales order not really, purchase order, right? Before a purchase order, because when a purchase order is being raised, it means that, and if a purchase order is being raised in the system, if you if you use the auto count system, right? If a document, for example, the purchase order you create, right? Then what happens to this purchase order document? This purchase order document is inside the system now. And then anyone can simply change that purchase order to the purchase invoice. And then it became a invoice. Then you have to pay to that invoice. Means the company will be lost. Does that make sense to you? But not anyone lah. Certain person within that authority. So if the purchase order creation is not authorized or being controlled, then it will cause an impact to the later on process. Does that make sense to you in terms of the control? Alright, this is the overview that I want to highlight to you, alright?